Hello, good morning and welcome. This video is to show you how After Effects animates text. The process is a little different than what we're used to, slightly more complicated, but I hope to create a video that is a little more coherent than the ones I've already seen on the subject. So let me begin by showing you the finished product, what it's going to look like in the end here. If we look in my layers, I've got 3 layers: Orange Coast College. I'm all pumped because I just visited the digital media arts department there at OCC. Let me hit play. So what I've done is animated. Let's fit this a little better up to 100%. 3 different layers of text. So you see orange scales in. Let me scrub through this. So you see the letters individually scale in the first word. The next one, the opacity, is individually coming in, right? And then the last line is a blur effect. So I want you to experiment with these different effects, but you're going to essentially make a looping GIF where text comes in and goes out. So this one is a 4-second composition. Let's look under the composition menu, choose new composition to get started. We're going to do 640 by 480 again, 30 frames a second, and for duration, let's do 4 seconds this time. So highlight all the numbers, type in 400, and you're good. You can choose a background color as well. I'm going to use the same one I've been using. Click OK. So yeah, let's get started. I want you to use at least 3 layers of text. I'm going to continue with the Orange Coast College motif. You are welcome to use anything you want. Maybe your first, middle, and last name. Maybe the college you want to go to or just get accepted to. But yeah, try and make something that's at least 3 lines of text. I'm going to name this composition, rename it by clicking on it and hitting return on the keyboard. And then I'll call this text animation. Okay. And let's begin by choosing the type tool, clicking anywhere in this area, and I'm going to purposely make my text too small here. And I'm going to show you how we're going to line it up. We've been doing this kind of a gridded effect or layout with text. So I'll begin by typing orange. And then we want to make a new layer with coast. So I'm going to click away from this layer here. And now when I come back up here and you click in the composition, it makes a new empty text layer, which you can type coast. Do not do Orange Coast College. Pick something else. Use different words, something more personal to you. I'll click away from the layer down here in this area, come back into my composition, click again to make my last line of text, college. Okay. So now I want to design my little layout to get the text lined up how I want it. And remember, in After Effects, we usually begin by kind of designing, a middle point, I guess, is the way I like to think about it. So I'm going to go over to 1 second and then begin by lining up coast, because coast is in the middle here. I want the coast line of text to be dead center in the middle. So, and everything else is going to be kind of, made, created, designed around it. So let's select my coast layer. And also, to simplify things, let's rearrange the layers so that they line up kind of corresponding with the order that the words come. So I'm going to take the orange layer and drag that to the top. Coast in the middle. There we go. Okay, use the move tool here, the selection tool, to select your text. And we can eyeball it, but I'm going to use the align window to line this word up in the very dead center of my composition. So look under the window menu, choose align, and then I'm going to click on the second and the fifth button here to adjust the horizontal center alignment and the vertical center alignment. So when I click on horizontal center alignment, it just barely scoots it over. I was pretty close, pretty good guess. And then the vertical center alignment, like so. So now I know coast is dead center, and I can grab orange. And since orange is kind of above coast, we don't have to worry about the vertical center alignment. We really just need to make sure it's horizontally centered. Same thing goes for college. Put it over here, and then change the horizontal center alignment. Okay, now let's make this bigger. So I'm going to use my type tool, double click on the word coast, and then look under the character window. And if you don't see the character window here on the right, you look under the window menu and choose character. But with my line of text selected, I'm going to click and drag on the font size to the right to make it bigger. Okay, nice and big. Now I'm going to use the align tool and line it up again because I'm pretty sure it moved up. So I need to adjust the vertical center alignment. There we go. So yeah, kind of after you make it really big, that's when you need to finalize your alignment here. Now I want to use orange. We're going to make the size of this text bigger by clicking and dragging to the right on the font size. You can see the E, so if you look at the right side of the E, now that lines up with the T pretty well. So I'm going to keep that as it is. And then college, come in here, I guess you got to select the text itself, the layer, double click using the type tool, and again, in the character window, when you hover over the font size, this blue link here, you can drag that to the right to go roughly about the same width as your first two words. And then use the move tool to move this guy down. I'm going to hold down the shift key to make sure it goes down in a straight line. So that's pretty good spacing between lines, between these two lines. Now I'm going to grab the orange layer and move that up like so. And I think that's pretty close. You can adjust individual letters if you grab the type tool. We've done this before, but I'll click between two letters. So let's say, you notice the R and the A are like touching, but O and the R aren't very close. N and G aren't very close. I'm going to click between R and A. I'm going to spread this out a little bit. So I'm going to hold on the Option key and click or press on the right arrow button on the keyboard. That will kind of scoot things over a bit just to separate those. Now that I've separated these letters, I need to make the space between like N and G a little bit smaller. Because look at like the space between R and A, here at least, is very small. N and G, there's a big wide gap, so I'm going to do Option, and then to the left to kind of scoot that over. So I'll let you play with this. I'm not going to spend too much time on it for the video. But to get an idea, for this assignment, I want your 3 lines of text to be about the same width. Okay, awesome. Next thing we'll do is start animating. So to do so, we're going to begin by animating the orange layer. And I'm going to bring my cursor about halfway between 0 and 1 second. So about 12 or 15 frames. Open up the little twirly here next to the orange layer. And we have an option for text here. And we have a little thing that says animate and then a transform option here as well. So normally we change things in this transform area, like when we're working with shapes. But in order to kind of show you the power of what After Effects can do to text, we're going to look under here under the text option. So when we've like changed the opacity and the scale before, we've dealt with this transform. Here we're going to deal with the animator in this text menu here. But before we even open this, I know that I want to change the scale of the letters in orange. So I'm going to scale this from basically 0% to 100% per letter. So to do that, we need to create a new animator. So where it says animate here, I'm going to click on this little arrow that's wrapped in a circle. And we are going to animate the scale. Okay. What that does is it opens up our text animator options. And before I begin, let's explain a few things. There's two things we're going to deal with here. The scale here and the range selectors. So you don't have to follow along this part. I just want to show you this to explain. So I'm going to change the scale of the letters in orange to 50%. So I'm going to click and drag this to 50%. Okay, notice that is affecting every letter the same in this composition. So it's made these letters 50% smaller, and it's shrunk them down on their anchor points, which are these little X's in the middle of each layer. Okay, now I'm going to look under Range Selector. What Range Selector does is it lets you tell After Effects what range within this one word we want to apply that scale effect. What I mean by that is if we look under this, there's a start and an end. I'm going to click and drag the start to the right. Notice that kind of turns off the scale effect for the first two letters when I change this to 34%. So now I'm going to tell the end, I'm going to click and drag this to the left. So I have given After Effects a range. So between 34 and 74% of this word, so basically in this area here, it is going to scale these letters 50%. So the range selector tells After Effects the range of letters you want to apply that effect to. Okay, so I'm going to put these back. And this time we're going to tell the scale to be 0%. So I'm going to click on Scale, type in 0. Notice we're not keyframing anything yet. The biggest difference with animating text is that all the keyframing is going to happen on the Start range selector. So how do we do this? Z-Barth. Well, we're going to begin by animating the start. So with my cursor about halfway between 0 and 1 second, I'm going to click on the little stopwatch next to start. I'm going to scoot over about 10 frames or so. So I made my first keyframe at 15 frames. I'll come over to about 26 frames. And we're going to make a new keyframe for start that is going to say 100%. So I could click on this diamond button here to make a new one, and then click and drag this to the right to make it 100%. And you'll notice the letters are animating. And if I scrub through my animation, you notice that the animation starts out with nothing, and then each letter grows until they're all at 100%. So, kind of a weird concept, but the way I like to think of it is I've told this layer to be 0%, and then it's going to begin at 0, and then it's going to slowly kind of work through and grow each letter and basically take this scale effect away, I guess is how it's working. But if you don't want to think about that too much, really I just like to think about animating the start point from 0 to 100. So let's do this again, except we're going to affect Coast now. So I'm going to click on the orange layer and use the U key to hide a lot of the stuff I'm not animating. So I'm going to hit U once. Oh, and it just shows me start. Perfect. And it shows me my keyframes for that layer. So now, and I also want to stretch out this a bit. So because right now, if I hit play, orange comes in really quickly. So if I stretch out the space between these two keyframes, it will go a little bit slower. I'll hit play. There we go. A little more legible that way. All right. Now I'm going to open up the Coast layer. clicking on the twirly here, and we're going to animate the coast layer. So click on the animate little triangle here, and for this we are going to do let's see, opacity. Okay, so again we are going to make the opacity 0, and then we're going to animate how coast basically turns opaque. So let's dial this down to 0. You'll see the word coast go away. And now we need to animate the range selector for the coast layer. So open up the range selector, and we're going to make the keyframes for the starting point. The first keyframe is going to say 0%. The second keyframe is going to say 100%. So bring your timeline to where you want your second line of text to begin animating. So I'm not going to wait until orange is already done. I'm just going to wait right about here. So at this point, I'm going to create a new, or I'm going to begin animating start. So click on the little stopwatch, and we want that part to say 0. And then I'll drag over about 15-20 frames or so and type in 100. So because we're making a change to something already animated, I don't need to manually make a keyframe, which you could do by clicking on this little guy here, but I'm just going to click on the number, type in 100, hit return, and now we've got my opacity animated letter by letter. If I scrub through, we can see like so. I'll hit play. Orange coast, looking great so far. So I'm going to select the coast layer and hit U again to kind of shrink that down, so we could see how the pace at which these letters are appearing by kind of analyzing how wide the space is between keyframes here. Okay. Lastly, we'll do college. So I'm going to open up the college layer, and we're going to create an animator for this. And let's do blur. Blur is kind of cool. For this, we're going to turn the blur way up until it almost goes away. So I've got mine set to 50. Now I need to animate the range selector. But for this, I don't want it to animate letter by letter. I want it to animate the entire word. What I mean by that, we're going to look under the advanced menu this time, and the units that based on not characters, like individual characters, but we're going to do based on words. So change, so look under the advanced menu, under the animator, right? And then choose based on words instead of characters. And then you can close the advanced menu. So from here, we basically just need to animate the start again. So we're going to click on, well, let's figure out where we're going to start this. So we want it to animate right about, I don't know, after the second word appears. Click on the start menu, or the start stopwatch, I should say. Drag over a few frames, 10, 20 frames or so. And then dial this up to 100. So we'll see college kind of come into focus here. If I scrub through here, ba-boom. Yeah. Very cool. Let's hit play to watch this. Orange Coast College. Okay, so notice Orange Coast comes in and then college comes in, but I have this blurriness kind of hanging out. I only want that to show up kind of right when it starts animating. So let's select college and hit the U key. So if we look at my timeline, here's my keyframes, right? So here's when it starts adjusting the scale, and then here's where it starts doing the opacity, and then here's where the blur starts to kick in, right? So I'm going to look at this keyframe, and if I don't want anything to show up in the first half of this animation, all you got to do is click and drag. Well, you got to use your selection tool. Click and drag this red bar so that the college layer only appears right here. So now you'll notice that blur will go away, like so. So it's a little cleaner this way. Okay, and Coast is kind of slow, so I'm going to change the width of this. It goes a little quicker. There we go. And then finally, to make this looping, because the beginning of my animation has nothing, I need to make the end of the animation have nothing. So right at about 3.5 seconds, we're going to quickly change the opacity of all 3 of these layers. So here's where we go to the old school methods here that you're used to. By doing the Option T thing. But first we're going to select all 3 layers. So select the first layer, hold down the Shift key, select the second layer, hold down the Shift key, select the third layer. Okay, that selects all of them. Now I'm going to do Option T and make sure that you're in the right place in the timeline. And that made an opacity keyframe on all 3 layers. So, and we want it to be at 100% here at 3.5, but then at about 4 seconds, we want to make another keyframe on each of those layers, but they're all selected, so I'll do Option T again. So now in this keyframe, I just need to change the opacity of one of these layers, and it will change all of them to 0. Hit play. There we go. Success. A looping GIF of text. You are now officially an After Effects genius. Only expect cooler assignments now that you know the basics pretty much. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Raise your hands if you have any questions.